in the same way that it's impossible for us to forgive a sin or a wrong perpetrated on another human being, it would be impossible for us to forgive something done to ourselves as children. Because it's very easy for me as a 37-year-old man to forgive what was done to me as a 6-7-year-old child. I'm no longer in that situation. So the same way we can't forgive for another person, we can't forgive for another person within ourselves, the 7, 6, 5-year-old child. That is
right. You're saying like if I wrong you and I go to your friend and I say, could you forgive me for what I did to Ellie?
Yeah, preposterous.
Well, I don't go to Ellie. You talk to him, right? Right. So you're suggesting that by the time a person is an adult, he and his child self are so sufficiently different that for the person himself as an adult to try to forgive those who did wrong against himself as a child would be akin to forgiving someone for something they did to a completely different person, which we all know wouldn't work.
Right. When I first had this idea,
meaning who are you to forgive it? It wasn't done to you.
It wasn't done to you.
Yeah.
Right. When I first had this thought, I was saying it as it's the wrong thing to do. But as I processed it, as I articulated it, I said, no, not that it's the wrong thing to do. It's meaningless. It's not something that could be done. So we have to go about it in a different way. And in the episode, what I communicated there was we have to validate, we have to advocate, we have, for the child in that scenario. That's the only thing we could do so that the child no longer has that hurt. But if we sit there and say—
You gave a very sort of startling and very vivid description. The 5-minute clip I heard where you described it as a courtroom. Correct.
So it would be, imagine I walked into a courtroom and let's say the adult who wronged me on the other side is a teacher of mine. So I, as an adult, I'm walking into a courtroom and on one side is a 6-year-old, my 6-year-old, me as a 6-year-old, and on the other side, I am the plaintiff. The 6-year-old is the plaintiff, I should say. I am me walking into the courtroom. On the other side of the courtroom is this adult teacher.
The defendant.
The defendant. And the 6-year-old child is saying, you embarrassed me in front of the classroom.
Mm-hmm.
And as a result, this is what you did to me then, and this is what still lingers with me until this day. And as an adult, I'm walking into that, and I can do one of two things, and obviously one of three. I cannot walk into the courtroom, obviously, but once I walk in, I can take one side or the other. And very often as adults, what we move towards is excuses or justifications for the defendant. And we say things like, he was doing his best, or do you know what he went through at the time? And my suggestion was, more than a suggestion, my recommendation for someone who wants to heal, so it's more of a direction for someone who wants to take on that path, is to stand squarely in defense and advocate for his own child and say, no, this is what you did wrong, and this is how it affected, and this is, all of those things.
I love the description, but just to give pushback, because I think that
I like pushback. You don't have to.
Yeah, I think it'll just make it even more compelling. The adult's tendency to want to find some type of exonerating argument on behalf of this accused or defendant,
correct,
right, is actually coming from a very mature place. It's coming from the perspective that an adult has, and perhaps that the adult only gained from having gone through this hardship. And it's actually a very enlightened view of being able to see the other side and find mitigating arguments. And it's a sign of maturity.
Yeah, I would say, certainly for the child, for the two in the courtroom, they both want to get past it. That's 100% their motivation, right? They're on the same page. Sometimes as adults, we have reasons that we want to hold on to hurt. But those two in the courtroom, the plaintiff and the defendant, I would say both have the same goal, right? They're not here in their ego form, right? They're both—
Which adult are you talking about? The defendant, I thought, was the
defendant was a teacher.
Wrong. Right.
Correct. As an adult, right? The teacher as an adult. So
Right.
the
And
adult
the
and the child.
defendant is not really in this room. This is a completely internal process.
Correct,
Right?
100%.
We're not talking
Yeah.
about confronting anybody here.
No,
We're
no,
talking
no.
about in a totally internal state in your mind, how you choose to
Correct.
regard this person's role in your life.
Yeah, what happens very often is when we're going through our childhood experiences, we immediately go to defending and advocating for the person who wronged us.
Right.
And what I was suggesting, with the goal of eventually getting over it, right? Not to,
Which you're saying is a good goal. Wanting to get over it
Yes.
is a good goal.
right, that's what I was saying, is that no one has
And
bad
I'm saying
intentions
even more
here.
than that, that the tools that the adult uniquely has to enable them to get over it are actually very healthy tools and a sign of growth.
Correct.
The only problem is
That it doesn't work because it can't be done.
and your argument
That's what I'm
is
saying is.
right. And your argument is, which I think is a very interesting way of, because without this whole description, without this whole scenario, it's very difficult to understand what you're saying. Well, why wouldn't it work? It sounds, you're choosing to let go of the hurt. You're choosing to move on. Why shouldn't it work? But when you describe it as two different parties, your adult self and your child self, well, that's why it doesn't work, because you're not the one who's in a position to forgive. Or maybe even tell me if you agree with this, because I'm sort of putting words in your mouth now. I can forgive the one who wronged me the way that affects me now in the present as an adult, because I am in a position to
Correct.
forgive that. But I can't forgive the way it affected this child, because who am I to tell the one who did wrong, it's okay what you did, to somebody else?